Novolyubivka village, Luhansk region, Ukrainian sovereign land. A Russian assault group on 2 armored personnel carriers arrived at the forest belt where they were supposed to land the infantry, but on the way, the first armored personnel carrier hit a mine. After hitting 2 mines, it should have already gone up in flames, but its armor held. However, it didn't deploy any infantry. Instead, it immediately turned around and started moving back. The second Russian armored personnel carrier did land the infantrymen, but was soon attacked by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone and destroyed. Pieces of metal scatter from it. Russian infantrymen immediately run to take cover in the tree line. Then, a Ukrainian kamikaze drone delivers a decisive strike on the armored personnel carrier, destroying it. Meanwhile, 2 Russian soldiers approached Ukrainian positions, but were spotted by a reconnaissance drone and attacked by bomber drones. The Russians slowly enter the tree line, and then a bomber drone arrives and starts doing its job. Another Russian offensive near Constantinople, Donetsk region. Ukrainians meet a column of Russian militants with anti-tank mines and kamikaze drones. After hitting landmines, the Russian occupiers abandoned their equipment and started fleeing. Meanwhile, Ukrainian kamikaze drone pilots began targeting them precisely. The Russians planned to suddenly break into Ukrainian positions and secure them, but without realizing it, they fell into a Ukrainian ambush and were brutally attacked. We can clearly see that almost all Russian armored personnel carriers are equipped with additional protection against drone attacks. This increases their chances of survival, but in most cases, it still does not save them from total destruction. Here the Russians are trying to flee the battlefield, but Ukrainian kamikaze drone operators maintain relentless pressure and strike mercilessly. Then the Russians made another attempt to attack near Velika Novosilka, a large column of armored vehicles with a Sarai tank in front, followed by MTLBs and armored personnel carriers. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone transmitted the coordinates of the enemy convoy to Ukrainian artillery, which in turn opened fire. A tank accompanying the convoy hit an anti-tank mine, but continued to move. The road along which the Russian convoy is moving is mined by Ukrainian sappers, and the tank hits a mine again. The MTLB, which was following behind the tank, is attacked by a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. Kamikaze drones continue to attack Russian tank, Sarai. The third kamikaze drone finally stops the Russian tank. The Russian convoy continues moving toward Ukrainian positions, but after an artillery strike, panic sets in. Russian infantrymen begin urgently disembarking from the MTLB and quickly run to take cover in the bushes and between the trees. Other armored vehicles start turning around and fleeing in the direction from which they originally advanced. The Russian offensive is in complete chaos. Ukrainian artillerymen continue their attack with the Grad multiple rocket launcher system. On another section, Russian infantrymen are advancing on foot to assault. Meanwhile, Ukrainian artillerymen begin launching cluster munitions in that direction. At the same time, a Ukrainian bomber drone arrives in the area, but the Russian occupiers manage to shoot it down. The cluster artillery bombardments continue relentlessly. The majority of the Russian assault group was neutralized. The remaining Russian soldiers began running out and fleeing. But the Russian assault doesn't end there. Another Russian convoy appears on the horizon. Leading the convoy is a tank, followed by 2 MTLBs and 2 armored personnel carriers carrying infantry. The enemy convoy enters the village of Velika Novosilka and heads toward the village of Novyi Komar. During the movement, Ukrainian forces managed to destroy 1 armored personnel carrier, while the rest of the armored vehicles continue advancing toward Ukrainian positions. The enemy Russian forces are getting closer and closer to Ukrainian positions. But then, a Russian tank explodes from a precise hit by a Javelin missile. Another armored personnel carrier, which was following behind, picks up the crew of the disabled tank and retreats from the battlefield. The Russian armored vehicle column refuses to continue the assault without the tank and retreats. Another shot from a Javelin finally destroys the tank. Here comes another Russian tank, armored like a fortress, charging toward Ukrainian positions. Ukrainian kamikaze drones begin attacking it, but stopping such a tank is not easy at all. The first drone strikes the tank, sending pieces of metal flying, but it has no effect on its movement. Therefore, more drones are deployed for the attack. After the second hit, the tank loses control and veers off the road. Then, Ukrainian drone operators deliver several more powerful strikes, completely destroying the target. And here is the Russian offensive in Zaporizhzhia region. A reconnaissance drone spotted 4 units of heavy armored vehicles. The first hit destroyed the Russian armored personnel carrier with an artillery shell. Then a kamikaze drone attacked an infantry fighting vehicle. 2 other Russian armored vehicles turned around and started to flee. Ukrainian artillery continued to attack the enemies. The Russians sent additional armored personnel carriers with infantry as reinforcement. Then the Ukrainian kamikaze drone destroys it as well. After the armored personnel carriers were destroyed, Russian assault troops on quad bikes were sent to storm Ukrainian positions. A reconnaissance drone captures the movement of the Russian assault troops. Ukrainian artillery opens fire. Kamikaze drones also begin attacking the quad bikers. The video quality is very poor because the Russians are using electronic warfare systems. This Russian assault ended in failure. Ukrainian forces did a great job handling the situation. That's all for today, friends. Subscribe to the channel to not miss new videos. This material was prepared by Hustler. See you soon.